Let's talk about immigration too, because this is interesting. 2 months ago, if you had said we're gonna be very close to maybe passing immigration reform come February of 2014, I would have said absolutely not possible.
Right.
But I think the Republicans must be very concerned that there is going to be that essentially the pro-immigration vote, the Latino vote, the activist vote could be energized in the off-year election because of the GOP obstruction on immigration. I mean, that's the only thing I can imagine is driving them at this point, and it looks like, I mean, things are relatively close. I mean, at least in terms of where people are talking about. There's a Senate plan that the White House and Nancy Pelosi support. It would include all the sort of, visa program stuff and the increased border security, workplace hiring verification, all of those sort of, we've got to make the border tighter and all of that stuff, which is, fine. And maybe, hopefully, but at the end of the day, the real key to all of this is getting people out from essentially the black market, the black market in labor, essentially. And the White House and Democrats in general want a sort of a guarantee that immigrants will be able to get citizenship or at least a permanent legal status within 10 years, and then a citizenship to follow within a couple years afterwards, as long as they're not criminals or I don't know what else. But and
Right.
it seems the House, I mean, I should say the Republicans, essentially, they don't want to have any type of guarantee path to citizenship. They want to have a probationary period that is benchmarked to sort of these vague, almost impossible to measure benchmarks. Immigrants can't have any family members on public assistance or something like that. That's all a little bit vague, but there seems to be a sort of a general notion that they will not keep those people from getting citizenship eventually. And so we may see some type of bill, because I think that the Democrats would, as long as there is an ultimate path to citizenship, they would sign off on something like this, and it would presumably take people out of the shadows. So we may see an immigration bill.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what it comes down to, because there are a number of House members who've said that they won't even consider the Senate plan, they wouldn't negotiate on it. So I guess it depends, can they find a place to meet on all of this? And obviously, for 11 million people, not having the fear of deportation is a huge motivator, as one would expect it would be. At the same time, to be given no legal status, I mean, essentially what they're doing there is what people on the right you'd expect them want to do. Join the labor pool. Let's get some cheap labor. You don't have to worry about being tossed out of the country, but you're never going to be a citizen, or it's going to be very hard if and then to me the whole idiotic, let's militarize the borders, as if there are still large numbers of people sneaking across the border.
Right. Well, the other problem is that probationary period is a little murky, because if you benchmark it to these sort of weird metrics that an immigrant has no control over, it really cuts down on their incentive to say, hey, here I am. Good luck with cutting down the whatever it is, building all these walls by 2017. And if you don't, you've got my name, and then you come and deport me and my children. I mean, so that's what's
I would
a little
think
bit
a lot of people who are immigrants would not go for this.
Yes, I would
think.
also think, but it depends on where this ultimately lands, and it's going to be interesting to see, just how afraid the Republicans are of this of the immigration lobby. I mean, we haven't seen the big sort of marches that we saw back in, I think it was '05, but
It is interesting. Clearly, look, there's a number of Republicans, particularly I think in California and Florida, who are in seats that have large Hispanic populations. In Texas, for that matter, too. That if they were to come out and vote, particularly if in a presidential year, maybe not this time around, but in 2 years, a lot of these guys, the share of the Hispanic share of their population is only growing and pretty rapidly. There's a good 15 or so of these guys are going to, and gals that are going to be in serious trouble. And so I think that some of it is that, and I'm sure some of it is a few of these guys and senators in states like Arizona and Nevada and places like that are seeing the ground completely shift underneath them from where their states used to be. And so obviously, clearly, there's a motivator there, for them to be able to at least try and win over some of these voters, and also it's about looking like you're tolerant, which is
well. It was funny. Did you see that
the Republican Party to do?
There was a piece in BuzzFeed by John Stanton, I think it was, who had a couple of quotes from an unnamed Republican lawmaker who said, "Look, I hate to admit it because these are my people, but it's because they're racist that they don't want immigration reform." And then there was like another a Republican spokeswoman who said, "We like, that we like to think that it's not about racism." And Lindsey Graham had an interesting way.
We like to think that.
Lindsey Graham had an interesting way of phrasing it, where he said, "Well, people have been demagoguing have been talking about demagoguery about immigration for a long time, and that hasn't changed. And I guess demagoguery is the new euphemism in the Republican Party for when we do it. We're actually what we mean is racism."
Right.
And
in Lindsey Graham's defense, he needs some more Hispanics to drop out of airplanes as human bombs into Syria.
Right.
So that's clearly why he's doing it. I mean, these guys are all look. There's some who obviously actually believe in this, and they're scared of what the repercussions.
Apparently, this is one of the big things that Republicans will get primaried on in these House races. So we'll see how
I'm still. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, we'll see how serious that threat is.
Yeah, I still, again, I think we're in a much better place than where we were, as you said, 2 months ago. But I still, by no means, am confident that anything's going to happen. I just think there's still too many lunatics. I think if they don't just have to spend all their time defending Senate seats, that's the Democrats, and they could pick up a half dozen House seats or so in this election and maybe bring things a little bit closer. It's possible, but I still think you've got a lot of there's still a lot of excess crazy left in the Republican Party. They have by no means used up their crazy.